I welcome you to our continuing study through the Psalms. And if you've ever been through a crisis of faith, or maybe you're going through one right now, I think the psalm we look at today is a special gift to us. It's Psalm 73, and is written by a man by the name of Asaph, who was King David's primary worship leader and also a prophet and a poet in his own right. And he's going to walk us through his crisis of faith. And it begins, here's how he sets it up. First of all, it's a proposition, something he actually believes, that God is good to Israel, to those who are pure in heart. So in other words, God is good to good people, to especially his own people who walk in obedience to him. He said, I know this is true, but as for me, and here's what's going on. My feet had almost slipped. So this would be his crisis of faith, like almost, I didn't know what to do with what I believed. I believe God's good to pure people, but my feet almost slipped. I nearly lost my foothold, another way of saying the same thing. For I envied the arrogant when I saw the prosperity of the wicked. So in some ways he's not saying, why does God let bad things happen to good people? He's saying, why does God let good things happen to bad people? Because I thought God was good to those who are pure in heart, and he will judge the wicked. And he said, I envied the arrogant, and I didn't know what to do with evil people that seem to be experiencing what I call the blessing of God. And it'll get a little more complicated than that for him, but first of all, he kind of tells us how he thinks wicked people look. He said they have no struggles, their bodies are healthy and strong, they are free from the common human burdens, and they are not plagued by human ills. I mean, they're healthy and they don't have any problems. Is this true? No. But it's just what it seems like to him. To him, as he is hurting right now, and in this crisis of faith, it seems like the wealthy get all the wicked and the wealthy get all the blessings. And in their wealth, they've turned their backs on God. And not only that, they have no accountability. Their lives, their mouths lay claim to heaven, and their tongues take possession of earth. It's like they're becoming their own gods. They're arrogant. They just kind of charge forward, and they say, without any sense of accountability, how would God know? And does the Most High know anything? So he asks two really important questions here. Like God doesn't see, and I'm just charging out doing my own thing. Of course, when we start thinking that we're God, like me, God, we do a terrible job. But right now, Asaph's more envious than anything. And he kind of summarizes in verse 12, this is what the wicked are like. They're always free of care, and they go on amassing wealth. Free of care. They're happy, and they're wealthy. They go on amassing wealth. And then he gets us, however, to the root of the pain. This is where the crisis of faith goes to another level. He said, now me, I'm trying to be pure in heart. I'm trying to follow the Lord, but I don't think it's worth it. Surely in vain I've kept my heart pure and washed my hands in innocence. Why? Because all day long I have been happy and prosperous? No, I've been afflicted. And every morning brings new punishments. So they're happy and prosperous. I'm plagued and punished. And I'm the one who serves God. Some of us have had that experience. Maybe a family member who turned their back on God, and they started a business. They're making millions of dollars, and we're trying to obey what God's called us to do, and we're just scraping by. I mean, how does this make sense? Why do wicked people look so blessed? He's really asking, if I'd break that into two other questions, it's like, what's wrong with this picture? What's wrong with this picture? I serve God, and it's not going so well for me. And they don't, and it's going well. And so is it really worth serving God and living holy? I mean, is this really worth it? And he says, surely in vain I've kept my heart pure. I mean, is this worth it? So this is his crisis of faith. And in the next verse, he said, when I tried to understand all this, it It troubled me deeply. Two very strong words here. I mean, this was a serious crisis for him. I didn't know what to do with this. I troubled because he was hurting, and all the wealthy and godless and wicked people seemed to be doing so well. Except for two things happened. Number one, I entered the sanctuary of God. I like to think he went to church one too many times. And here's what worship ought to do to us when we gather with God's people. Then I understood their final destiny. And you know, when we're going through a crisis of faith, God doesn't always answer all our questions, all our why questions. Why? He doesn't answer our why questions, but he always will change our perspective. And this is what happens. Finally, Asaph sees the wicked from an eternal perspective. You know, this life's pretty short compared to eternity, which is incredibly long. And he said, I saw their end. I kind of looked at them from the perspective of eternity, and all of a sudden everything looked different. He said, surely you place them on slippery ground. There is a moment where the consequences of their sin is going to catch up. You cast them down to ruin, and they are like a dream when one awakes. Have you ever had a good dream and you didn't want to wake up? He said, right now they're living the dream, but it's no more lasting from an eternal perspective than a dream that you wake up from. And they're going to wake up. And when you arise, Lord, when the moment when your judgment comes, you will despise them as fantasies. They're living in this kind of fantasy temporal world. Yes, they feel good. Yes, they're healthy in some cases. Yes, they're wealthy in many cases. And yes, they could care less about God. But that's no more lasting from an eternal perspective than a dream that you wake up out of to harsh reality. That's his perspective change. Now, before he goes on to say how his faith crisis then resolves, the conclusions he comes to, he gives us a little bit of an editorial comment. He just kind of editorializes on our pain, and on his pain. And he said, you know, when my heart was grieved, and when I was bitter in my spirit, I was just angry with God. I was angry with myself. I couldn't figure life out. Why is it so hard to serve God when people who turn their backs on God are having such a great time? By the way that he was perceiving it. He said, when my heart was grieved and when my spirit embittered, I was senseless and ignorant. I was like a brute beast before you. You see, here's a little two-word phrase I sometimes think about. Pain lies. And that's why when we're in pain, we should never make a major life decision. When we're in pain, we should not come to an ultimate conclusion about who God is or isn't, or who we are or aren't, because pain always distorts. He said, when I was grieved and when I was bitter, it took away my sense. I was seeing things wrong. I mean, it's not true that the wicked are always healthy and have no problems, but that's just the way it seemed to me. And pain distorts our perception. But God always changes our perception. And when he finally gets past his pain, he sees things clearly. And here's the profound conclusion he comes to. Yet I am always with you. God, I may be plagued and punished. I may be saying no to my flesh. I may be dying to self, to use some New Testament language, to follow Jesus. I may not be giving myself what my lusts and my greeds crave, because I'm trying to live holy. I'm trying to live honoring to you. And yet I just feel plagued and punished every day. Maybe he was sick. I don't know. But here's what, when he sees how temporary the life of the wicked is and how God's going to bring them into accountability, he says, here's the one thing I do have. I'm always with you. And this is going to mean three things. Number one, I'm going to do a 1, 2, 3 here. Number one, the fact I'm always with you means you hold me by my right hand. The right hand is always a picture of strength. And he's saying, because you're with me, I get to hold your hand. No, he said, God holds me by his right hand. When I was with, when my two little daughters were young and their hands were really small, I would sometimes just put my finger down when I was walking with them and they'd grab onto my hand like this. But when we came to an intersection, when I no longer trusted their ability to hold on to me, I'd swing my other fingers over their wrists and I would hold on to them. And you know, there are times that God says, more than me trusting you, hold on to me. I'm going to hold on to you because I'm with you and you're mine. And then number two, you will guide me with your counsel. Even though your counsel means saying no to sometimes the things I crave that will addict me and ruin my life and hurt my relationships, you guide me with your counsel, even though it may not bring me the short-term happiness and wealth that I look for. Number three, afterwards. Here's the eternal part. This is that eternal part again. Afterwards, you will take me into glory. They're going to wake up to the harsh reality of the consequences of the rebellion against God, but you are going to bring me to glory. So who do I have in heaven but you? And on earth, there's nothing that I desire besides you. The you is God, his life, he's with us. My flesh and my heart may fail, but God, that's the you. God, you, Lord, are the strength of my heart and my portion. In God, these two things are very powerful things. He's our strength and he's our portion. This is what it means to have God near us. And so he'll go on to say, you know, the wicked, they're going to face the consequences of their sin. But he gets to the very last verse. But as for me, it is good to be near God. That's a life-changing statement. In the midst of all of the questions he has, he said, but for me, here's the one good I have in life. It's to be near God. And I think this makes us think about what's the good that we have in life. I mean, is the good that we'll have a good retirement account enough to survive on? Is our good the fact that our children will turn out fine? I mean, those are wonderful goods. But there's a good that trumps all other goods, that no matter what we go through, no matter what life circumstances throw at us, it is good to be near God. So he says, I know God's good to those who are pure in heart, but that equation seems to be reversed now. I'm pure in heart and I'm plagued and punished. The ones who aren't pure in heart are getting all God's blessings. Now it's reversed by the end. And he says, but as for me, it is good to be, just to be near him. And of course, this is where we think about Jesus, whose Christmas name was Emmanuel, God with us. He invaded our world. He came to step in. And then when he died on the cross, all our sin was placed upon him. And then he rose from the dead to conquer all of that. And he is the Lord who we can totally trust. We can totally surrender our lives to. That's why he said, I have made, Jesus would yet not come for another 1,000 years, but we get a foreshadowing of this. Jesus is God near us, and we've made the sovereign Lord our refuge. And then out of how he's changed our lives, we tell everybody around us of what he's done for us. I will tell of all his deeds. This is an amazing psalm as we walk through this crisis of faith that Asaph just describes for us in really helpful detail. So it leaves us with a few things to discuss. First of all, as he fights with doubt, it reminds us that you know, doubt can plague our lives. And there's many roots to doubt in our lives, and maybe we want to discuss that. And we may want to dig a little deeper into why pain does lie to us, why pain distorts our perception of God, and how we have to guard against that. And then lastly, how can we stay near God in the face of doubt and adversity? What does it mean to stay near him and to be able to live with that as the bottom line in our lives? It is good to be near God. May God bless you as you walk through these. And thank you for walking through Psalm 73 with me today. God bless you.